Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Snap UK podcast. I'm joined this evening by John, Gary, and Griff. So, hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
It's been a few weeks since we last recorded, and we are hurtling towards the 2020 season, whether COVID likes it or not. A few things been going on recently, and we'll get into all those details later. But I want to start off with Earl Thomas, who was cut by the Ravens on Sunday after punching a teammate, and apparently a litany of issues within the locker room. So John Harbaugh deciding that the team does come above kind of individual players and decided to get rid. Gary, I know you're a massive Earl Thomas fan. Do you want to see the 49ers?
No. I think Earl Thomas 5 years ago punches a teammate, and the teammate says sorry. But Earl Thomas, who blocked for Derrick Henry, at the end of last season in the playoffs, it's a bit of a different matter, isn't it? But yeah. I just don't think he's the player he was, and I think you can't have those indiscretions at the end of your career. You just don't get away with them as much, do you? And if the Ravens were, if they could win a playoff game, they're very close, aren't they? So anything that disrupts that plan and stops them moving forward, you just get rid of, and it saves them loads of money on the cap.
Yeah, so $10 million he was due to be paid this year. The Ravens are finding that he has been cut because of, well, like we said, punching a teammate. So they'll try and avoid having to pay that. And the three teams that kind of were originally linked to Earl Thomas, 49ers, Texans, the Cowboys, I can't see the 49ers signing him because of all the personnel issues. I think Lynch and Shanahan have worked really hard to create a really positive locker room, which is too big a risk. Jerry Jones has come out and said, no, Cowboys aren't interested. Jerry Jones even slagged Ian Rappaport off, said he knows nothing about it. So that leaves the Texans. And then probably about 2 hours ago, I saw a rumor on Instagram that said the Browns might be interested in, now that Grant Delpit is...
the Texans will probably trade Deshaun Watson for him, despite the fact he's already left.
That sounds like a very Texans Bill O'Brien type thing to do. But I think you're right. I think like 5 years ago, everyone would be falling over themselves to get Earl Thomas. But since he fell out with Pete Carroll in Seattle, everyone's kind of steered clear from him. The Cowboys didn't make a play for him. The Ravens eventually paid him a lot of money, but I think they're regretting that now. And I can't see anyone paying him like close to $10 million this season, or even a bare minimum. I think he's another Antonio Brown type case where people are just going to leave clearly or steer clear of an insanely talented player.
I'm assuming it's a competitive sport, and in trading there were scuffles all the time. And if they wanted to keep him, they'd have kept him. So, yeah, I think this is all it's done is he's given the Ravens an excuse to save themselves $10 million, $10 million even. So, yeah, I assume he's going to end up somewhere. Yeah, Cleveland or Houston.
Jags.
Yeah.
My money's on the Patriots.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Because we've got no defensive backs left after they all decided it was a time to have a year off. So he'd fit in quite nicely there.
How much would you be able to afford to pay him? I know you've raised a bit of cap space, but that would use most of it.
It'll be another case of his contract's been voided. Let's give him a 1 year deal and ship him off again at the end of the season or before if he's too disruptive. But imagine if he did join. That makes up a big chunk of our issue, doesn't it?
You'd be competitive against the Jets, wouldn't you?
Now.
Yep.
$34 million now.
What, in our cap space?
Yeah.
We can afford him.
How much in the cap space?
34 million according to the cap.
Wow.
That's insane.
Well,
it wasn't just the hitting of the player that he's been done for. I think that's almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. Apparently he was late to a number of meetings, a number of training sessions, but also he's just generally caused a nuisance of himself within the locker room. And I think kind of there were rumours that some players have actually called him out and gone to the coach and said they don't want to play with him anymore. So if all those rumours are true, and especially the point around kind of late to meetings, can you really see Belichick wanting a player like that? I mean, yes, I agree. I still think he's a talented safety. Aside from the Derrick Henry handoff in the playoffs,
he didn't hand him off. He kind of rode him like a little horsey, didn't he? No.
He did make him look pretty stupid, I admit.
He'll end up somewhere. He's too talented a player, and he doesn't. It's not like he's gone full Antonio Brown yet.
Willie though, because everyone keeps telling me that Jadeveon Clowney's too good a player to not end up somewhere, and I don't know where he is at the moment.
And what about Des Bryant as well? Was he too talented a player to end up?
He's too old to anyone to care about him.
But even so, but Earl Thomas is old as well.
Well, Jalen Hurts has been injured, isn't he, at the Niners? So we do need a tall wide receiver, Jim.
We've got one.
Well, Des was working out at the Ravens this week, wasn't he?
He left without a contract.
But he's it's not like he's disappeared without a trace. He's working out.
But is anyone excited by the prospect of seeing Des Bryant come back?
No.
He was a hell of a player.
Back in the day, he really was. But
he hasn't done anything for 2.5 years.
Yeah,
he was injured for 18 months of it.
Yeah, but that's a lifetime in the NFL. It's not like he was amazing in his last couple of seasons at the Cowboys. When was the last time he was any good? 2014.
Yeah, probably.
When was that catch? He was robbed of a touchdown when it was quite clearly a touchdown.
13.
13, 12.
Yeah, 2013, yeah.
So,
that long ago. Bloody hell.
Yeah, it's been a long time since he was a standout wide receiver. There's 60 players you'd probably take ahead of him at the moment at wide receiver. So would he be worth the gamble when there's all these young players you could sign?
I'm not sure there's 60 players. Really, 60 players?
Yeah, probably. I'd imagine. Are you telling me he's inside the top 60 best wide receivers available at the moment?
I bet he's around that number.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, not available. Like, if he was on a roster, he'd be one of the top 60 wide receivers.
Yeah, just about.
You don't know that. That's my point.
We don't know that, but I also don't know that he's not.
No,
because
would you take Des Bryant or Brandon Cooks?
Brandon Cooks.
Bobby Anderson just got $10 million a year.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, but he's far.
Devin Funchess or Des Bryant?
Well, let's touch on a point that Gary made there, that 49ers have had a few injury problems at wide receivers. And this evening, they announced that they brought the following wide receivers into workouts. Johnny Holton, River Crawcraft,
you are so
Justin Hardy, and former first-round pick Kevin White. And
Kevin White, go on, son.
And they've also brought in and signed Tavon Austin. I don't know. No, he's at the Bears. Yeah. Well, he was at the Bears. They've also signed Tavon Austin and JJ Nelson. They're not going anywhere near Des Bryant. And to Gary's point, he's still a good red zone weapon. So those four names, two of them I've not ever heard of.
Johnny Holton was at the Raiders.
Yeah. What did he do at the Raiders compared to what Des did at the Cowboys? I think Dez's time is gone. I don't think we're going to see him again, unfortunately. He was a good player in his day, but I think that's it.
Something that might be affecting Earl Thomas is he does have a court case which is due on the 3rd of September for his domestic violence.
Wasn't that his wife?
Caught him and his brother in bed with one girl or something.
Yeah.
His wife was threatening him. It wasn't actually usual we associate with domestic violence in the NFL. It's actually the other way around. He was being threatened.
Yeah, but I don't know.
He was being a naughty boy, though.
I'm not denying that, but he didn't break the law.
He's a very naughty
boy. He broke the code.
He broke the code. So, other news going on at the moment. So, there were something like on Friday last, something about 77 odd COVID tests came back as positive, which threw the league into disarray. But it turns out there were 77 false positives. meaning that actually the testing centre had managed to bugger up the test basically.
77 false positives. That's just like the intro to every Jags program if you go to a game.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, amongst those kind of was starting quarterback for the Bills, Josh Allen, but also the Cleveland coach Kevin Stefanski. I'm saying that quickly after a few beers.
Just did.
Yeah. Granted, it's fine. It's happened now, and kind of when they initially released as positive, they went into lockdown. They didn't spread what they thought might be the virus around their respective camps. What happens if that false positive and that kind of mess up of testing? What happens if that happens the Saturday before the first Sunday, and suddenly one team loses their starting quarterback, and another team loses their head coach? What does the NFL do? Is it fair that that the Bills carry on without the starting quarterback?
Yeah, I think you play your second string quarterback, and your coordinators take control of the game.
Yeah,
That's on.
It's the same as if he goes down with he twists his ankle in practice.
They've got about 59 players in the squad, didn't they?
Yeah.
53.
It went up, didn't it?
Did it? We should have reported that.
That not part of the CBA?
Even so, I admit it's like they get if they got injured, they have to carry on regardless. But actually, they tested positive, but they weren't positive. It was a false test. Someone bugged it up. It's not fair if suddenly you lose a whole position group or your head coach the day before the game, and you have to go into the game basically without your head coach or without your quarterback or without your starting left tackle or without any number of different positions. Is there kind of an option where the NFL could just suspend games until that's been proved positive?
Life isn't fair, Jim. You've just got to get over it. I think if we get any football and we manage to conclude the season with COVID, you've got to just take the rough with the smooth. I think I was watching the very start of Hard Knocks, and the head coach of the Chargers, what's his name, Lynn?
Anthony Lynn.
Yeah, he was saying really, there's the opposition that you're playing against, and it's how you manage COVID. The team that manages COVID best may well win, or do much better this year than they would have done other years. Yeah. So the teams all know the situation. They've got to plan more. They might need you to have your backup ready more than you did previously. You've got to be ready to roll that dice with the number 2 person in every position.
Yeah,
you can't just have Brian Hoyer, pretending to be the opposition all the time. He's got to actually maybe play.
Or let's hope that never happens. Griff, Brian Hoyer at quarterback instead of Cam Newton this year?
I don't think it's going to matter for us, to be honest. I think we can win or lose with any of the 3 quarterbacks. Cam's clearly the best of the 3, but you don't know how fit he's going to be. The other 2 have got 8 starts in the last 2 seasons between them. One of them is Stidham, who's got no starts. So I don't think it really matters. If Hoyer plays, we've still got a 30% chance of winning because of how good our coaching is. But beyond that, I'll be disappointed if Stidham doesn't get some game time this season, because I don't think Cam will be there in 2 years' time.
Rumour has it he's been throwing quite a few interceptions during practice, and Cam's actually looked a little bit better. Well,
was Stidham injured as well? Did I see he was injured?
He did. Yeah, he has appeared on the injury list. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's clear that Cam is going to start the season as the quarterback, and they're going to basically give him 2 games or 3 games to learn the system in a playing environment. Same reason we always start slowly every year, because he always lets people play and then sort of sorts them out from there. Clearly, he's the best option. It's just whether he's the best option in the long run, I don't know. But, it would have been a good story if Stidham could have beaten him out in camp, but it was unlikely, wasn't it? With all the restrictions and everything.
Well, yeah. Apparently, Stidham is bothered by leg and hip discomfort and is yet to be established if he'll be available for week 1 against the Dolphins. Luckily.
So it could be Brian Hoyer quicker than we thought.
So yeah, Cam Newton backed up by Brian Hoyer. That's not something I think anyone saw coming this preseason.
That's not a game plan you can easily hand from one to the other either, is it?
Really.
It's
I
not
want to.
it's not like
I want
I
to see
three
Hoyer
backing up
just
Lamar Jackson.
running.
Well, you won't see Hoyer on red zone anyway. So if you're watching it that way, it won't matter.
Yes, you will. They always put pick sixes on red zone.
Very true.
A few other injuries actually kind of cropping up at the moment, and well, actually quite a lot of injuries.
A lot.
I know obviously we've been starved of content for a number of weeks now because training or preseason hasn't been happening as it usually would because COVID's taken that away from us. But I have a sense that not all the players are coming back in the right condition for what they should be. They're going almost straight into, well, bar a few practice sessions, into kind of padded contact sessions. And we're starting to see the injuries rack up now. I know the 49ers have put a few people in injury reserve. Going through the list on profootballreference.com, it's a long old scroll, and I know it includes all the players who have kind of opted out of the season because of COVID. But is there a
safety at the Browns, wasn't there?
Yeah, Grant Delpit, the rookie safety.
Done a knee, hasn't he?
He's done his ACL. Jalen Hurd of the 49ers, he was looking good again. He's done an ACL in.
How many games has he ever actually played, though?
He hasn't played any actual games. He was injured all of last year, and now he's going to be injured all of this year. And there's a few other kind of things that kind of worry me in terms of like the amount of injuries that are occurring. Are players going to be fit and ready, and are we going to see players literally dropping off the field in week one because they're not fully game fit?
But didn't they have this concern about when football came back here? And actually, the number of injuries hasn't been massively inflated over previous seasons.
No, but the games were very slow for the first 4 weeks, and they aren't battering each other, are they?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not playing football, so there's not that many big tackles going in the Premier League anymore.
Yeah.
Or a bunch of women. But to Gary's point, they're not actually smashing into each other at full pelt. Are we going to see a heck of a lot of injuries this year?
Rugby has come back okay, though.
Yeah. I mean, with football, there was Arsenal were affected by more hamstring issues than usual, but it's just conditioning, and they will get better. I don't think there'll be any more, possibly, because it's just how it is. They will get fitter. I don't. You never know.
No.
I'm trying not to say this is the new normal and all that horrible shit, but
let's see if we can go through one podcast or a COVID cliche.
It can't be done.
But we don't know. These are new times, so yeah, let's see.
But especially, I mean, taking COVID aside, you've got the players' union kind of asking for less pre-season games. Obviously, we're playing no pre-season games. Is there enough time, or are there enough kind of opportunities for players to get game fit coming into a season? Or are we going to see, weeks 1, 2, and 3, just the whole NFL riddled with injuries because players just aren't in the right place where they used to be in terms of kind of fitness?
I think they'll be fit, but there's fit and match fit. I'm sure that all of the players have had, training regimes to do in the 8 to 10 weeks leading up to. I'm sure they don't just turn up at camp ripped.
No.
Because apart from the O-line, it's not like you see a load of chunkers running around here, on Hard Knocks or any pre-season games like they do. Apart from the big lads, they do turn up reasonably fit. So I'm sure they will have all been working to their own plans. These guys live in big houses with gyms in their garden type thing. It's not like they've just been doing nothing. Some of them will, Zeke, but apart. So I think they will be fitter than you think, And I suppose the one good thing about NFL is, compared to, football or rugby is it is a stop-start game. So if you start to feel something's a bit tight or you need a breather because of the rotation system that you've got, you can do that, can't you? You can rotate your players. So it might mean that you, like I say, I think that use of the squad is going to be huge for this year because, you can't just have a great first team with some poor reserves. The balance across the squad may well have a much bigger influence this year. So when you look at depth of squads, then you start looking at, I don't know, the Chiefs, like a running back, like again, even in fantasy this year, taking the top running back is going to be a risk because the first 4 or 5 weeks, every single team could be doing committee, no matter who they are, because you don't want to injure them. So, who's got the best 1-2 running backs? Then, right, okay, well then, that team's got an advantage straight away, hasn't it?
As what it might happen is, yes, say because of that, it won't be fitness is the issue to start with as such, but quality, because they aren't hitting the ground running. So the first 3 weeks, it could be, some teams that look dross, but maybe
could be a real leveler.
Yeah, exactly. This could be a completely level playing field, which is is going to be good. I mean, horrible for fantasy owners and anyone making predictions, but let's.
How many teams sit in that? When we do our power rankings, how many teams sit between? Well, I know how many teams sit between 10 and 20, but you know what I mean. There's lots of teams you could put into that space, is what I mean. Rather than there's 10 teams. I get there's 10 teams, but you could probably, all of us might come up with 20 teams that could sit within that space. So those teams, all of a sudden, if they've got 2 average running backs, and one team above them has got 1 superb running back and 1 really poor one, then that difference of being able to rely on that superb one it's negated, isn't it?
I think you're right. I think we all kind of know who when we do those power rankings, who the top 5 are, and the order might change a little bit, but that top 5 is pretty set, and the bottom 5 is usually pretty set as well. But the remainder's kind of hit and miss. It kind of lots of teams kind of bounce all over the place, and then when you throw in the fact that there's an extra playoff place this year as well, that's going to make the league really competitive.
I totally agree.
Good. Griff, you're a bit quiet tonight.
Well, I'm listening
NFL
so I haven't had a lot of time to filter the news through my own system. I couldn't remember whether we discussed the fact that Lamar Miller signed for the Patriots. You were talking about backup running backs.
Yeah.
And it's basically on the premise that Sonny Michel may not be available for the start of the season. So we might be using a man who's barely played for 2 seasons to replace a man who's not really been fully fit in his 2 seasons. And
just to point out, Lamar Miller has been shifted to the active, physical, unable to perform list as he's rehabbing a torn ALC.
Yeah, it's not ideal. So I was just looking again at strengths and weaknesses, and in the Patriots, I think it's extremely unusual to see the team not being set. You can't pick a quarterback yet. You can't pick the lead running back yet. All right, you've got Edelman, who's your number 1 wide receiver, but he's 58 years old. Like, you don't know, you couldn't name the tight end on the team. It's strange. It's just a strange year. And I have
look at a team like the Bucks and go, wow, they've got a lot of what have they got? Ronald Jones, who was not as good as everyone thought he was going to be, but then now they've got LaShawn McCoy. So actually, as a 1-2, okay, well, if one's not doing it or one's not feeling it, you've still got another option. Then you've got Chris Godwin and Gronk and Mike Evans. All of a sudden, they become a real viable option, don't they?
I think they're going to be an excellent team. I'm definitely not sold on the running back stable. LaShawn McCoy didn't make it into the day squad for the Super Bowl on a team that deliberately went and got him because the coach loved him. So I'm not sold on that. And Jones has been nothing. He's not been worth a mention. So in a team led by a 40, whatever he is now, 41-year-old quarterback, you need legs. And I'm not sure I think that's their biggest weakness is the fact they don't have a dependable running back.
They got Peyton Barber as well.
Yeah,
God, is he still around?
There's a reason we didn't mention him. I just think a lot of the New England success, certainly recently, was based around which one of the three running backs or fullbacks on the field was going to get the ball, and I don't think they have that option. So the Bucs are going to be really good, but they do have a weakness, I think, and that is it. And I'd love to see them do well. I'm not fussed about the fact that Gronk and Brady are there. I really like Bruce Arians. I think it'd be great to see them do well. That's the weakness that they've got, I think, is Brady needs someone to just pass the ball to for half the game. Just hand it off.
What about the Niners then, with their kind of we don't know what we're going to do till we get to the line kind of approach?
Yeah,
we're committee everywhere, aren't we? Committee, motion.
I really like the Niners, and I think the squad is excellent. I have never, ever, ever been sold on Jimmy G as a leader, and I think that is your problem this season. He's a good, solid, winning quarterback. As soon as you get under pressure, is he a leader? And I'm not sure we know the answer yet.
No, I don't think we do. I think you're right. I think I don't want to say he's a weak link, but he's certainly not as strong as some of the other position groups that we have. I think the offensive line looks really good. There's loads of really good buzz coming out of the training camp about Nick Bosa going up against Trent Richardson,
Williams.
Trent Williams, sorry, thank you.
Not Trent Richardson, he's not getting another go.
It didn't sound right when I was saying that. I was like, oh, no, it's Trent.
Trent Darby.
Trent Darby, yeah.
All the Trents, Nottingham Trent University. So I think there's a lot, but I agree with you, Griff. I think if Jimmy G was Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, then I think we'd be talking about the 49ers very differently. I think they're going to be very strong either way. One thing that we mentioned on the injuries and we mentioned the lack of preseason. And I think kind of the lack of preseason really has hurt kind of some the rookies who are taken probably 6th, 7th round, but also the undrafted rookies as well, who probably don't have the chance because the squads have been cut. They don't have the chance to shine in those preseason games. And I think kind of if you watch the latest Hard Knocks, there was a bit about Austin Eckler, who said, those preseason games were so important for him because that's when he was able to shine. If we do go into kind of weeks 1, 2, 3, and we do see kind of a spate of injuries, is that going to be the time where instead of looking at some old veterans, teams turn to either their practice squad for rookies, or they go back into the pool of undrafted rookies and start bringing in a few chances? Who, are we going to see another Philip Lindsay or Austin Eckler?
I hope so, because the Eagles bring in a undrafted running back as well who did quite well.
Christian Wade's still out there.
Yeah.
Christian Wade's still out there, yeah. He's still with the Bills, isn't he?
Yeah. Why not? If you're looking at the free agency and it is, great LaShawn McCoy again, or Jay Ajayi, why not take a chance? Because we know what those players can't do. So let's give a chance to some rookies. If you've got a decent scouting department, you should be aware of it. So the Bengals aren't going to do it, but other teams might.
But I think that also, harks back to another point Gary made around, the teams who deal with this season the best are the teams who are going to be planning around COVID. And to your point, are they going to have we've got all these lists of undrafted rookies who we scouted, as soon as a linebacker goes down, this is the next guy we're going to bring in. Or as soon as the quarterback goes down, we've got a backup quarterback, but who's going to be our next kind of backup quarterback? I think it's those teams who, like you said, the Bengals are terrible at scouting. They should have the number 1 pick because that's the easiest pick to make every year. But are they going to have kind of that depth of kind of knowledge going back into kind of the last college season to really kind of pick up the right players and spring a few surprises? I like it.
I think fantasy will be very similar as well.
Yeah,
I think, normally you would try and hold on to, for as long as you could, your top 6, 7 picks, because you'll have invested heavily in those. But I think, if a player gets hot this year, I think through trades and the waiver wire, I think teams are going to be changing all over the place. I think you're going to have to be really agile in your leadership of your fantasy team this year.
Brilliant.
That waiver wire is going to be really important this year, isn't it? To your point, you've got to be on it every week if you want to stand a chance, Griff.
I'm just not that bothered. I've got other things to do.
You're not going to be agile in your leadership of your fantasy team.
Like a bitch.
Oh yeah, every Sunday I have no idea what to set, but I'm not prepared to panic about it until the Sunday. That's the problem when it comes to the waiver.
Then you will be in the no longer called Loser Bowl again.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'll be releasing all my players for trades and picking up some that waiver wire. So you're talking about the Bengals and their inability to scout. Who's the backup quarterback on the Bengals behind Joe Burrow this year?
McLaren?
Jim, don't look it up. See you moving. No, it's not McLaren. He's at the Texans or somewhere. It's Ryan Finley.
Well, there you go.
Exactly. Completely inexperienced. What did he get? 3 starts or 2 starts at the end of last year? And then a guy I've never heard of, Jacob DeLegala. Never heard of him.
I know Blake Bortles is about, yeah.
Blake Bortles is still out there. Who's their backup running back behind Joe Mixon?
They got rid of Bernard. Bernard went to the Patriots, didn't he?
It's Giovanni Bernard.
Oh, hang on.
The other one went to the Patriots. It is Giovanni Bernard, who's not been any good for the last 3 years.
No, 8 years.
And then Sammy G. Ryan, remember?
Oh, who used to be at the Washington football team.
The Washington football team, absolutely. And so that doesn't strike me as very promising. And then the wide receiver group, you've got AJ Green coming off a year out.
Yeah.
T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Okay.
His second round pick, I reckon.
Fine, but inexperienced.
Yeah.
And Tyler Boyd, who is hot and cold at best every week.
Tyler Boyd was sneaky good last year. Didn't he have a 1,000 yards?
John Brown?
Hot and cold. But then the backup to those 3 are...
Was it John Ross, was it?
John Ross.
Names you've never heard. John Ross is the 4th wide receiver on the list.
He's quite short, though, isn't he? Don't like a short wide receiver.
No, we know you don't.
And then it's the same with the tight end group. There's no names there that jump out. CJ Uzomah, or whatever his name is. Is it Uzomah? Uzomah. Anyone?
Griff, sorry, but are you giving us a news flash that the team that picked first in the draft are pretty shit?
But
is that what you're telling
making the point that the backups are going to be important. I'm making the point that the Bengals are going straight back to the number 1 pick, because if what you're saying is true, they've got no backups. There's nobody there. Their backup left guard is injured and possibly out for the season. They don't have another one.
Apparently Burrows looks really good, though.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
He should be. Do you know who the
number 1 pick?
The third quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars is? It's the well-known Jake Luton.
Is he really, really tall?
I don't know.
I think he might be really, really tall. I could be thinking of somebody else, but I think that's him. But their whole quarterback room is it's Gardner Minshew and
Mike Glennon. Yeah, and Mike Glennon. Joshua Dobbs is 4th on the roster at the moment.
Is that where Glennon ended up? Is it?
Yeah, that's where Glennon is. And
there's a chance he's going to play because John will probably kick Gardner Minshew into touch.
Peterman's available, isn't he?
Peterman, there's another well-known quarterback who has a bit of a controversial history is also available, whose name shall not be mentioned.
Go on then. Who's the backup quarterback at the Seahawks behind Russell Wilson?
Doesn't matter
because Wilson's never injured.
Probably never going to play, but if he does, that team goes down the pan so fast. Can't believe he's still in the league. Geno Smith.
Oh yeah.
Jake Luton is 6'6", so I thought he was quite a tall bloke. Yeah, I don't remember why I know who he is, but I don't know. I think the point you're making about backup players being important is going to be extremely relevant. And I think, as we've said, the teams with weaker scouting departments, the teams that don't make the good calls on backups, are just going to fall apart this year. So that's the Bengals, my fantasy team, the Raiders. That's how it's going to be.
The Raiders have got Mariota.
Yeah, maybe a quarterback, but the rest of the squad, I don't know. Has there anybody got any faith in the coach there at all? Really?
I love the season ticket box. I want to be a season ticket holder just for that.
Box. Have you seen that yet, Griff?
No.
Delivered in a stadium.
Yeah. Listeners as well, do a little YouTube search for that because it's pretty impressive.
It is awesome.
So yeah, backups are going to be important. I'm going to move us on to a number of new contracts have been signed. I'm struggling. Did we talk about George Kittle on the last show, or did we not? Because he's
I think we just argued with Duncan about it on WhatsApp.
I don't believe we did. I don't believe we covered it.
He tried to make me bite, didn't he?
So George Kittle has got a new contract. He is now the best paid tight end in the league. He's average salary of $15 million. Total contract is 5 years, $75 million. Signing bonus $18 million. And he was swiftly followed by Travis Kelce, who the Chiefs wrapped up to an extension on his contract. And he has signed a 4-year extension and is now worth $57.25 million. So, these two are always compared to each other. Kelce is a little bit older, but I think in both players, they're worth paying because I think without them, both teams would, maybe not the Chiefs so much, but certainly the 49ers, but they wouldn't be as explosive about their tight ends.
How much is Kelce on per year then, Jim?
Oh, well.
Did Kittle keep the title as the best paid, or did Kelce?
Yeah, he did.
Kelce wasn't as much.
No.
I don't remember Duncan bringing that to my attention, I have to admit.
Isn't Kurtz about to get a big contract at the Eagles as well for the same reason?
They're redoing it now, aren't they?
Yeah, Zach Ertz is going to be the next one. So yeah, Kelce's average salary is $14.3 million, and Kittle's is $15 on the dot.
Wow.
So not a lot in it, but certainly kind of two tight ends that, I don't think either team would want to be without. I know I was relieved when the 49ers signed Kittle.
Yeah. Money well spent.
Sorry?
Money well spent, that is.
Very much so.
There's no better feeling than tight end relief, is there?
But generally, I think it makes Kittle, I think he wasn't in the top 10 of wide receiver pay. So at what point is a tight end worth more than a wide receiver? Because from my point of view, they almost do more than, Kittle certainly does more than any of our wide receivers in terms of he is an excellent blocker, but he's also an excellent receiver as well. With more players coming out like that, and we've seen premium on the tight end position, are we going to see a rebalance of that salary between wide receivers and tight ends in the future?
Wow.
Only the top ones.
No.
Jimmy Graham was the first one to really redefine that role, wasn't he? Being a, not the first, but
Antonio Cage.
He was, but he was, there was ones before him, but in terms of the last kind of 10 years, Jimmy Graham, he had, huge amounts of yards and touchdowns, and he very much was, in essence, a wide receiver who blocked a bit, wasn't he? But there are still some other tight ends out there which are, basically blockers that run 10 yards occasionally. So I think there's a mixture of both, isn't there? So I think the elite ones will get paid, like we've just seen, but I think the rest of them still won't, because it depends how versatile they are to the team, doesn't it?
What would you prefer? Would you prefer an elite tight end like a Kittle or Kelce, or would you prefer an elite wide receiver like Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins or Michael Thomas? Because I'm not sure. I mean, I know it also depends on the type of game you're playing, how important your running game is, but certainly from a 49ers point of view, I think Kittle's much more important than any of our wide receivers.
Yeah, but that's like saying the Patriots could have kept Gronk forever as key Gronk and just worked wide receivers around him. but it only works with the top 3 or 4 tight ends.
Yeah.
The rest of them are not as valuable as the top 20 wide receivers.
Yeah, I suppose you're asking, would you take Michael Thomas and Austin Hooper over Kittle and, Deebo Samuel?
I like Deebo Samuel.
I know, but, he's not elite, is he?
Not yet. No, it's a fair point.
And injured as well, probably, no doubt.
He is injured at the moment, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So, but my point is, you're talking, again, across the balance of the two. It just depends where you see the importance to your team. What's your O-line like as well? Because if you've got a great O-line, do you need a blocking tight end?
Or does it make
you need to invest in it?
It helps.
It does help, but do you need to pay for that when you could go and get Michael Thomas?
Yeah.
Michael Thomas is a few and far between as well, though. Let's be honest.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you've probably got the top 5 wide receivers who are, generational talents, and then there are some other good wide receivers. Don't get me wrong, but I'd probably take George Kittle over
Beckham.
Well, based on Beckham's performance last year, yeah, probably, but he was injured. But yeah, he does more for the team than what Beckham did last year for the Browns, certainly.
Mike Evans or Kittle?
Tough on that. I like Mike Evans, always did. Anyway, a few more contracts. We now have a new highest paid defensive player. Joey Bosa signed a new 5-year contract with the LA Chargers. 5 years, $135 million. Average salary of $27 million. His cap hit in 2023 is $31 million. That's, decent quarterback money now.
Wow.
That's going to help him really try and, build a fan base.
Well, you say that. We've both sat here with, Bosa shirts on. Admittedly, the other Bosa, but, you have that type of personality in the team, and you have that that kind of character. It sells shirts.
He'll get a lot of airtime because he'll be on the pitch a lot.
Worth it. I mean, I know his signing has also thrown in a bit of controversy in that Melvin Ingram has also now signed a restructured contract because he got unhappy that he wasn't getting paid as much as his mate.
What else have they got?
Well, I suppose do it whilst you've got a quarterback on a rookie contract.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, really good point. So yeah, thinking about that, I mean, Justin Herbert come towards 2023, he'll be in his 4th year.
Yeah,
looking to re-sign. So
that's the reason.
That gives them a decent window now to kind of make a charge. If Justin Herbert is the real deal, they've probably got one of the best. Well, I think one of the top 3 pass rushers in the league now tied up to a decent contract, or a long contract, 5 years.
It's great, and it's what it's good for the Chargers that they have these players, but it doesn't excite me if I was a fan because the team's just still going to be crap.
But they've got a really good defense. Like they've got Bosa, Ingram, Derwin James, Casey Hayward at the back. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of them because you've got a rookie. You've either got Tyrod Taylor or a rookie quarterback in Justin Herbert. But there's some decent players around him as well in terms of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler's a good running back. So I think we're going to see a very different Chargers to what the Chargers we used to seeing under.
I did see they're going to let season ticket holders in, but they're still expecting 0 fans for the first game of the season.
Oh, that old joke. Bless them. We've got a new stadium as well now, which is quite worth going to, the SoFi Stadium.
Who do we think has the better season in Los Angeles this year, Chargers or Rams?
Rams. I know I've just built up the Chargers, but yeah, I think Rams.
What about the last year makes you think that they can be good this year?
Aaron Donald.
Okay, but he was there last year.
Yeah, but he's still there.
I find
he's still very good. He's not that old at all.
No, he's not old. I find them such an uninspiring team. I can't find anything on the Rams that makes me think, okay, they're anything other than just creeping into the playoffs.
Oh, sod off.
I think if you put them in a different division, you think very differently about the Rams.
Yes, of course, but they're not in a different division. So
No, well, that's just tough, isn't it?
You absolutely love Cooper Cup, Griff.
yeah, I do. And if he's there, I will take him again and screw up my fantasy team again. But Jared Goff on a slide. The coach.
He's not on a
the
slide. He's just not that good.
Okay, I'll take that. That's fine.
It's not like he was like in the top 5 quarterbacks and has regressed to the mean. His mean is an average quarterback paid like the best.
So, would you take Jared Goff or Jimmy Garoppolo?
Jimmy Garoppolo.
I think they're much of a muchness.
I agree. I would take Garoppolo just because I think he still has room to improve, whereas I think John's right. Goff has plateaued already.
Already?
Yeah, I really do. I think John's hit the nail on the head. He wasn't that good. He got made to look good by the system, and this is where he is. I also think the same with McVay. He is very good, but I don't think that he's going to suddenly be really, really great again this season. It could be 2 or 3 years before he's got a really good team.
He's definitely punching. If you've seen Hard Knocks,
I've not seen it this year. No,
you should look that up, Griff. It'd be 5 minutes well spent.
He should also keep his top on as well. Bear that in mind, Griff.
Is this the bit where I take my top off? Or?
No, please not again.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Well, he is punching.
Yeah.
But you know, I think the Rams are going to have a decent season this year. I think they had a bit of a Super Bowl hangover, but I think they're going to be a lot better. I think in the last 5 games at the end of last season, they scored on average 30 points, which is decent. It's better than decent. It's really good. And I mean, to Gary's point, they've still got a decent defense as well, led by probably a future Hall of Famer in Aaron Donald. And they've still got Jalen Ramsey at the back there. Actually, they've got a really good secondary.
I mean, I will say this: Sean McVay is not an ugly man, but that is impressive. that is quite. I mean, she only appears to own bikinis.
All I'm saying is punching.
You know, we were talking about backups earlier. The Los Angeles Rams backup quarterback is a guy called John Wolford, who sounds like he should be working at like Debenhams.
Not anymore.
Well, no, but how have they got themselves into that position when everyone else can see that Goff isn't that great?
It's because they're paying 45 million quid.
Yeah.
And
as well, like it may help this year that there's no Gurley, and because when Gurley was playing, there was the attention was all on him whether he was any good, and then when he wasn't on the pitch, of course, all the attention is on why isn't Gurley on the pitch.
Yeah.
But shouldn't that make a quarterback better? Like he hasn't got that much focus on him, so perform better. Because you're right, he was pretty average last year. He ended the season quite well. This is a quarterback who this year is going to be paid 28 million. Next year he's on 34 million.
I think quarterback. I think what we're forgetting is we've named a load of backup quarterbacks today, and most of them are terrible or completely unproven. So, what does this unproven person, what does that unproven quarterback? Is he so much different to the other one? Gardner Minshew or some nobody, or Jared Goff or some nobody. How many good 1-2 quarterback combos are we saying we've got that aren't a rookie and somebody else?
True.
For Goff, though, the back.
So if you go to Miami, you've got Tua and Fitzpatrick, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you've got Herbert and Tyrod.
Tyrod.
And then you've got Baker, Mayfield, and who?
Someone else.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum. There you go. Actually, you could argue that's one of the better 1-2 quarterbacks
I would absolutely argue that that's one of the better ones. Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky at the Bears.
Whilst we're on quarterback, we should probably touch on Alex Smith and the fact that he's actually thrown a football.
I have got that on my run notes. Yeah,
We absolutely should touch on that and the fact that he's saying, yes, I am going to be fit to play this season. And Ron Rivera, we need to talk about Ron Rivera. And Ron Rivera is basically saying he'll be in the mix once we know he can protect himself.
Well, quickly going back to the Rams, I will just say the O-line is still not very good, and Andrew Whitworth is 41.
Yeah, they didn't address that at all during the season.
I'm telling you, the Rams are going to be no good. And while we're talking about backups, the best backup quarterback or quarterback duo is Dak Prescott and Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
By a mile.
Yeah, fair point.
Oh, no, I don't worry about them boys all year.
Them boys. So back to Alex Smith then. He's come back from 17 surgeries and a horrendously broken leg. Almost lost his leg. Almost died. And now he's back, apparently playing football and tossing the pigskin around. So, any bets for anyone else winning comeback player of the year?
He plays.
If he gets on the field, that's comeback player of the year, surely.
Wrong.
It is. If he gets on the field, there's also been an enormous implosion in Washington. Because I would love to see him play, and he's still the best quarterback there. However, that man should not be risking himself on a field this year. Just shouldn't. How susceptible must he potentially be to COVID? Like, having had all these drugs and everything in his system, his immunity must be low. That must be a concern. And B, their O-line isn't great. They've just lost their best O-lineman to you.
49ers, that is.
Sorry, the 49ers, yeah. And, you're going to tell me he's not going to get crushed and re-break that leg? I don't want to see him on the field this year, and I like him. I've defended him as a player. Yeah. I really don't want to see it. You'd be cringing. The first sack he takes, you'd be like, I might just look away for a minute.
I mean, I agree. Fair play to him for, having that drive to come back. He said he wasn't done. He wanted to carry on. At the end of the day, he was towards the end of his career anyway. I think a lesser player or a lesser person would have just gone, yeah, fine. I'll be happy just to walk. But he's gone through it and come back. However, as well as himself, I don't want to be that first defender that sacks him.
No.
He destroyed Alex Smith again. It's like, what an arse. But any edge rusher or whoever it might be, it's just doing their job. And you don't want to lay that guilt. I mean, whenever there's an injury like that, you always feel bad for the tackler because they're just doing their job. But I think that's even worse. Like you've put everyone else in that sort of position. But if he does come back and if he does play well, if he's 80% of the quarterback he was before he went away, he's the best quarterback on that roster, if you ask me.
I think if he's about 30%, he's better than Dwayne Haskins.
That's trying to be generous.
I'm not sure you're going to see Dwayne Haskins starting that many games because Ron Rivera had Kyle Allen for several seasons at the Panthers. There's a reason why he's brought him there. I think Kyle Allen could well be ahead of Dwayne Haskins after the first couple of weeks. They'll give Haskins some games, but he wasn't very good last year, was he?
No. And he didn't ingratiate himself by missing a play because he was off celebrating with the fans as well.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I mean, Washington have got a lot of problems, let's be honest. But again, that's another team. If we're talking about a guy who's effectively crippled being their best quarterback, and we'll mention Ron Rivera while we're here. They brought in a coach that you would say is a vast improvement, inspirational guy, etc., 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 who's now discovered he's got cancer and at any point could miss chunks of the season.
Yeah, so news on Rivera is diagnosed with a form of skin cancer. He's going to carry on coaching whilst undergoing treatment for that cancer. It's always horrible to read that, of course. We wish him all the best. But as a head coach going into that franchise, he's already taken on so much more than just being a head coach in terms of everything going on with COVID, everything going on with the name change. Then God knows what's been going on with Darius Geis and kicking him off the team. And now he's got this. And he's like, Jesus, just give the guy a break. He's a widely respected coach. He's at the Panthers for a good number of years, took them to a Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl as a player with the Chicago Bears. We all wish him well, but for me, he was a great hire by Washington. And I just hope he comes back and he can show just what a good coach he actually is.
Yeah, no, yeah.
He's going to have his hands full, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that whole franchise...
There's no winning season there, is there, this year?
No, the whole franchise needs to be rebuilt almost top to bottom. Maybe apart from the defence, which has got, a decent defensive line, that offence needs a heck of a lot of work, probably starting with a new quarterback in the next draft.
Do you not think, though, with Rivera, bearing in mind all the things you just mentioned, the best thing they can do is say to him, here's a 6-year deal like some of these other coaches have had. We're not going to sack you. We're going to let you build this team up. Because if you chop and change every 2 years from the position they're in, this team just goes straight to the bottom of the pile every time. They need somebody in charge who has a good reputation, which he does, and just be allowed to get on with it. Almost Belichick-like or Shanahan-like. Like, just go and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a new president as well, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
And
I think basically Snyder's just trying to, distance himself a bit and try and give the club to some football people, isn't he?
yes, and I think it's the right thing to do. It all feels a bit too little, too late, if I'm perfectly honest. But
yeah.
at least
So
they're doing something.
They hired Jason Wright as the president of the Washington football team. It's going to take a few years for that to sound normal.
He's only going to be here for 1 year.
I know. Now I'm going to get used to something else as well. God knows what that's going to be. I don't want to be in charge of that though, but it's a marketing disaster waiting to happen.
Stop, Jim. You'd be great at that.
I'll just flip a coin and see what happens. The Washington coin flippers, maybe.
The Washington Heads? You can't call them that.
But yeah, I mean, there are numerous stories about other minority owners wanting Dan Snyder to resign. He's gone ahead and kind of put in a new president, and that position in Washington is more than just kind of running the business of the football team. He has a bit more power in terms of actually how the whole football operation is run. I think that pairing with Ron Rivera could work really well. I agree with you completely, Griff. I think give Rivera a good shot at it. I think the good stuff is that he's got Jack Del Rio as one of his assistant head coaches, so he's got head coaching experience and can just step into the void. If Rivera just needs to take some time off, so I think they're kind of as prepared as they possibly can be. And it's one of those proper old school franchises that we just want to see do well again. The NFL is better when the Washington football team and the Cowboys and the Eagles and the Giants are all slugging it out in the NFC East.
Well, one of the teams should be good at least.
It would be nice.
How wrong does it look when you see Jason Witten in a Raiders uniform?
Oh, God.
I don't think you'll see it much.
Well, I'm looking at a picture of it at the moment. It's just not right. That's just such an odd appointment. He's going to be an embarrassment, I think.
As long as he's not broadcasting, play, mate. Play every year. I don't want to hear your voice no more.
Yeah, but just retire. Like, surely he's made enough money that he can just not broadcast and not play football anymore. Because he wasn't that great last year, was he?
Oh no, but he was he gets 3-4 million quid to basically shear it up. That was a play, and we're really glad that but I really want to score here. Cheers, Jason. Just describing what I can see.
Great.
Gonna end the podcast on another COVID note. So since we've been gone, the Big Ten college franchise, college league system, Big Ten and Pac-12 I said they're postponing their autumn seasons.
Is the word you're looking for?
Sorry,
Big Ten College Conference.
conference is the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So those two conferences are postponing the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. The Big Ten's got 14 teams in it. Really confusing. Anyway, the other three conferences are going on. That means like there's a number of players now, including two of the top three quarterbacks who aren't going to have a season going into the draft. So Trey Lance from North Dakota State and Justin Fields from Ohio State, they're not going to be playing football for a year. And we always get to the NFL draft, and you always have those teams that need a quarterback. We've mentioned Washington, Jacksonville could be another one that's looking for a quarterback. You're only going to have one of those top three quarterbacks who's going to have game time, Trevor Lawrence, this year. How big
are they cancelling the season then rather than just postponing?
Well, they're postponing it to spring, but how the players who aren't going to be playing aren't going to play in spring because they have to then prepare for the combine and then the draft. And the furthest they can push the draft back is to, I think, the first week in June. So realistically, are you going to carry on playing in spring for your college team and risking $20-30 million, which could be your first paycheck, or are you just going to go into draft mode and declare for the draft early? And then what impact for those teams picking this does that have? You're going to have a quarterback who has not played for a year or are not developed and not kind of seen any video. And we talked about Dwayne Haskins he's a first round quarterback and he had a full college career and he's probably going to be turning out to be a bit of a bust. Would you want your team picking a top quarterback next year or any top player next year, really, the way things are going?
Well, there'll be some that it's still fairly obvious you've got to take, and some will benefit from the rest. But I can't see a lot of these big players playing. But some of them have signed a petition, haven't they, to overturn the decisions at their colleges. So, I mean, it's just going to be trouble upon trouble upon trouble. You're not ever going to hear the end of this. You're going to get, for years, you're going to hear, well, this player would have been great if not for this, or this player would never have been drafted so highly if this hadn't happened. It's just going to go on until we are bored of it.
You're not bored of it already.
Yeah.
If the draft was a science, then that'd be fine. It's not. It's still hugely based upon scouting and chance, and so it will have an effect. Let's not kid not, but the players that are going to be going for it, they should have enough on tape. If they come in and they bust, well, it might be. It's just giving people excuses, but it's not like they're injured; they're just not playing. So just scout properly. The draft is just the biggest pseudoscience there is, apart from the combine. So
what, running around in your underpants is not science?
It's no.
But my teacher said.
The thing is, though, like the colleges that aren't playing are going, oh, we're going to lose 80 million quid or whatever it is. Which, of course, if those excuses come up, then the argument of why the kids aren't being paid needs to be answered, because the money being lost to football shouldn't be just ignored, because these kids should be getting some of it.
Yeah, I agree. That'll always be something I agree with. They should at least be invested in some way when they're producing so much for the colleges. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean those changes are afoot in terms of their image rights. The control of that is going more to the players now than it is to the colleges. So moving forward, they'll be able to, they're not obviously not going to get paid. That's never going to be a thing. They get paid by having a scholarship to college, as good as that might be for them. But they will have the rights to their own images, which you'd think is a basic human necessity. So they can trade off that in terms of appearance money or inclusion into video games, for example. So they'll start. I think that there are changes afoot in that terms.
Yeah,
which is good. It's the right thing to do. the NCAA is a bit of a we think the NFL is bad as an organisation in terms of ethics, and the NCAA doesn't exactly bode well. But there are other kind of, I'm going to throw some names at you just to kind of start watching out for that. Players who have kind of opted out of the college season as well. So Gregory Rousseau, edge rusher, probably the top edge rusher in the draft. Caleb Farley, cornerback. Sage Surratt, wide receiver. And Micah Parsons, Penn State linebacker. All players that we're not going to see now in the college season. The benefit is that they're not going to get injured. So we've seen players like kind of Jalen Smith, the linebacker of the Cowboys. His draft stock dropped when he absolutely ruined his knee for Notre Dame. So there's swings and roundabouts, isn't there? But
yeah. You look at someone like Derrick Henry, and one of the things held against him is the mileage that was put on him in college, and there's going to be a whole year of kids who don't have that.
Yeah, that's very true. That benefits them. Look, nobody has any idea, and like John rightly points out, it's not a science. They'll still be able to get most of these decisions as correct as they ever do. It's just interesting that all the colleges haven't gone the same way. I thought once one went, they would all go. They were just waiting for someone to go first, and I'm astounded that isn't the case.
Yeah. Also, let's have an NCAA video game again. As you mentioned it, because they were good.
They were better than the Madden franchise.
Yeah. I don't think we've had one of those about 7 years now. Let's have one of those back. If you're listening, EA or 2K.
I just one game that syncs both Madden and the NCAA, it would be perfect. But then you need to buy one again. Anyone else got anything else they want to discuss?
No, not really.
Let's go to sleep.
Oh, crowds. You mentioned the crowds.
On and off, we've mentioned it.
Because, of course, Miami are going to have like 13,000, and Sean McDermott says that's unfair because they're at no point are the Bills going to have any fans. So it's just something to bring up. But yeah.
See, again, this is a case of if one team said we're not happy having any, they should all have been together in not having any.
Yeah.
But they're not. Or if one team said, look, we think 5,000 is a safe number, there should have been a conversation, right? Everyone's going to have the same. Because the whole point of the NFL is it's about parity. They try and have parity. And if you have a crowd, it does give you a very minor advantage as a rule, unless you're terrible and then they're on your back. But I can't see how they can have different rules for different states on this. It needs to be...
America just works like that.
I know.
Yeah. Why doesn't the NFL step in and say, look, we get to Griff's point, we work on parity, so no one's going to have any crowds. Like, crowd play an important point. You think about going into Seattle, and if you're the offense of the opposing team, like the amount of preparation you have to do in advance of that, because the ground is so noisy. You don't have to do that again. Seattle's one of those teams that are going to be, if there's no fans there, that's going to make a massive difference, I think.
Do you think Goodell is going to go to the owners that are heading into a season without any gate receipts and tell them they can't have the amount that they've been allowed by the
They don't make that much. They don't make that much from gates. When you
It's all
compare
about
it to
TV. They don't need
it's all about TV. I agree, Griff. Like the NFL should have come out and said, "Look, we're going to have one rule, and that's good. That's how we're going to play it." But as it is, you're going to have some stadiums are going to have some people in, other stadiums are going to have more people in, and other stadiums are going to have no people in. And it's just something we as spectators at home, we're going to have to get used to. Obviously, no games in London this year, which is sad.
I'm not sad that I'm going to miss a Jags game. I like London games. I don't need to see the Jags again for a couple of years. That's fine.
You'll be happy with that.
I'm with John.
It's a good day out. It's good fun. But yeah, watch the Jags. I'll wait till 2021.
Cool. Anything else? Or are we done?
I think we're done.
So it is 15 days, 1 hour and 58 minutes until the NFL kicks off. I just looked that up. we're going to try and be back in the next couple of weeks with some NFC and AFC previews. But until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And good night.
See you later.
Bye.